Hi everyone, welcome back to Dobby Books. Today I'm going to cover, I guess, part one of what I did this weekend. Right now, what I'm going to cover are books that I'm currently reading and or listening to. And then I'm going to have another video that's probably going to be more like a vlog because I went to, yesterday, my husband and I went to Rare Books LA at Union Station. So I want to put all that together for you and share the day with you. I ended up not getting anything from the Rare Books. There really wasn't anything I could settle on, but it was just a wonderful day. And we went on the train and it was wonderful. So that's going to be a separate video. For now, let me cover what I'm currently reading. So I'm still reading Becoming Madam Secretary. It is taking a long time, and that's only because my studies for the semester, there's two research papers I'm working on, longer ones, and then I've got a mini one due in a week or two. So it's just demanded a lot of my energy. And if I don't work on those, it get to a point where I can feel like I'm getting anywhere, I get anxious. So that's what's taken up all my time. I usually read this at the end of the day with a nice glass of wine. I look forward to those moments. I should have one again tonight. I am this close to the end. Can you see it? So my goal is to finish this tonight. And so far, Frances Perkins is with FDR in his administration during his first 4 years. She has managed so far to get to eliminate child labor, to establish 8-hour work days, 5-day work days, work weeks, and a minimum wage. She's still working on allowing unions to be formed. I think one of the last things she's been able to do, although it's not yet where I'm at in the book, she was really working for a social security. And that I think has taken her the longest so far. She's still working on it with FDR. She has to deal with a man by the name of General Hugh Johnson, who established something called the NRA, National Relief something, but there was a blue eagle attached to it, and I apologize because I don't know a whole lot of details of this era in history, but if you displayed this blue eagle, you wore some pin or you had it in your window, you were showing that you were with the president and you were with this program. And if you didn't, there could be like some social repercussions. And this made Frances Perkins very uncomfortable. She did not like this. It was, to her, it was too much like a fascist type of thing, and she was very uncomfortable with it. And she was trying to get this across to Roosevelt. Because right now Johnson has Roosevelt's ear. It's starting to wear down because he has drinking issues, and this is making him less reliable to Roosevelt. So she's finally finding a way to turn his attention back to her, so they could focus more on these goals that she has as labor secretary. She had to move to Washington, D.C. when she got this position, and her husband at this point is in a mental institution. He has severe bipolar disorder. He is now delusional, and she's had to commit him. So she has that difficulty, that home life, where she wants to go visit her husband every weekend. She wants to attend to her 16-year-old daughter. So her daughter has to go live with family friends while she's in school. And then during the week, Frances is in Washington. She takes a train over the weekend to go visit her husband, and sometimes she takes her daughter with her, and then she takes a train back the next day. She doesn't get a lot of sleep, it seems. And so she is living with her friend Mary Rumsey, a very long-time friend of hers, whom she met way back when she was working in the slums of New York. Mary Rumsey is a very wealthy woman. She is now a widow. And what I have discovered about this friendship is that and it hasn't really been delved into too much yet in the book, but apparently there was some sort of romantic connection to Mary Rumsey, but I don't know yet. Let's see what the author chooses to do about this topic. Also, there is the lawyer that she has hired who helps her write up the documents that she's going to need when she goes to the cabinet meeting, and what they can legally do and not do, etc., with these ideas. And it's hard for her because she has these men who are a little cynical. And then she has this young but brilliant lawyer. His name is Charlie Wazansky. And right now she's working on convincing, well, Secretary of Labor, she decides this, but she needs to convince others that the German Jews who are trying to flee the country, because Hitler right now is starting to lean heavily on the Jewish communities, are trying to get out. And there's that issue of, some people who are more cynical about immigration are saying, well, we don't need these, Jews coming into our country. So she's battling that right now in the book. It's just so interesting. I really can't say that any part of this book has dragged on, gotten boring, or tedious in any way. This book has truly had me chapter after chapter after chapter. Awesome book. So that's that. Now, the next one. These are two books I will be reading, and coincidentally, they're both Victorian novels with Victober. And these two I'm reading because it's just coincidental that with my British and European literature class, we're reading these two books. The first is Carmilla, and this is by Sheridan Le Fanu. And this particular edition, I believe, is the Valancourt Classics, which have more scholarly references to them. So a little background on this story. It says, following a near-fatal carriage collision, the beautiful young Carmilla is taken in by the narrator Laura and her father. The two young women become strangely attracted to each other, but there seems to be more to Carmilla than meets the eye. After her arrival in the village, local peasants begin to die, and Laura falls ill and languishes. What is Carmilla's true identity, and can she be blamed? So this is really neat, and what's interesting is that it says here on the back of the book that this story was a major influence on Bram Stoker's Dracula. It remains one of Sheridan Le Fanu's most enduring works, and I believe this was written, it doesn't say. It's a Victorian novel I'll be reading, not too long. And the second one we'll be reading is The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. And there was a date here. It was written published in 1886. And you know what it says here? First published in 1886 as a shilling shocker. That sounds like someone with a Mexican accent. It's very shilling, because they mean to say chilling. But I don't know if that's a typo. But let's go on. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde takes the basic struggle between good and evil and adds to the mix bourgeois respectability, urban violence, and class conflict. The result is a tale that has taken on the force of myth in the popular imagination. This broad view edition provides a fascinating selection of contextual material, including contemporary reviews of the novel. Stevenson's essay, A Chapter on Dreams, as well as excerpts from the 1887 stage version of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That would make sense because my professor is also teaches theater, and she always seems to find a way to incorporate plays into a lot of the literature that we read. Also included are historical documents on criminality and degeneracy, the Jack the Ripper murders, the Double Brain, and London in the 1880s. So this edition sounds like it's got some great stuff in it. So that will be coming this month in October. And there are two books I'm listening to because I feel like it. This is my sanity. So on the way to school and back, I'm listening to either or, depending on the mood that I'm in. Let me bring it up. Working by Robert A. Caro. He reads it, and he does a very good job of narrating the book. Very good job. And I just love how he thinks and processes. He he really is a very careful researcher, and I love. He already covered when he worked on The Power Broker, in the interview that he had um, with the power broker Robert. I'm forgetting his name. Oh, Robert Moses, and it's just fascinating. He talks about how Robert Moses, if he was contacted by one of the wealthy in New York at the time, who would say, "You can't run the highway through this area. That's my golf course. Why don't you move it over?" So Robert Moses would move it over and cut through a poor neighborhood. And there was a story that Robert Caro tells about how it would have been much easier to make this highway go in a different direction. In other words, it would cut through less neighborhoods and simply be more practical. And I don't know which highway that was, which expressway or highway that was. But it wasn't done because there was another individual, wealthy, who didn't want their highway running through their own neighborhood. So he made it run through a poor neighborhood. There's a story of a farmer who, of the 35 acres that he had, I believe only 20 of those acres were really good, productive land. And he, when he found out that there was going to be a highway cutting halfway through his property, so he would have property on this side of the street and the other side of the street, he wrote Robert Caro and asked if he would be willing to move it over 1/10 of a mile so that it wouldn't run through his land, but rather around it. Robert Moses, and I made a mistake, he wrote Robert Moses about this. And in response, Mr. Moses gave this BS excuse that, oh no, the geological, um, what is the word, inspections and everything said this is the best way to go. It's an out and out lie. And it was just very interesting. It's very sad. Um, he also right now is talking about the work he's done on Lyndon B. Johnson autobiography and how he learned that many of the Texans in the town where Lyndon Johnson grew up were very private. They were not very open with him. And he struggled with this over and over again. And finally, he told his wife, we need to move to this town where Lyndon Johnson grew up, which is way out in the boonies. And they lived there for the next 3 years. And he said he found once he lived there and was seen in town a lot, greeting everybody, they started to open up to him. And he really started to understand what a difficult growing up years were for Lyndon Johnson. A very, very, very lonely place to live. And he doesn't just get into that, but how difficult it was for the women who worked there. Brutally hard labor that the men and the women had to do to make what they could of a life in that area. And Bob Caro was also able to find out. He was also able to solve the mystery that there was a man by the last name of Koch that Lyndon B. Johnson was running against. I don't know if it was in the county or in the state of Texas. And it was always rumored that Johnson stole the election from Koch, but no one could prove it. And it's because, number one, Johnson didn't leave tracks. There were no records. But Robert Caro found those records, and he found them in a place no one would think to look. So Robert Caro was able to solve that mystery. Well, no one will ever know. He was able to finally know, and he published that in one of the volumes of the biography. And I love to see how he talks about how he, has these questions and starts trying to find ways to answer these questions, and how it brings up a thought from the past or another idea, and how he makes the connection. Oh, I just love that. So I'm having a lot of fun listening to this book. There is also a second book that I'm listening to, and this one was purely on a whim. I guess I just wanted to listen to something completely unrelated to anything. So this is it. And it is Persuasion by Jane Austen. And I don't know who the narrator is. because I'd have to look it up on my app, and I don't have the Audible app on my tablet. So, but I would rather listen to a Jane Austen novel from a narrator with a British accent than an American accent. There's apparently some you have that option. Jane Austen is British, and the setting is British and everything. So I want to listen to someone with a British accent. So the narrator of this particular edition of Persuasion is doing a lovely job, and I'm just enjoying tuning out and just enjoying something that's not school. So that's the other book that I'm listening to. Oh, and that is it, everybody. Have an awesome week. Please stay healthy, enjoy the sunshine, and happy October to everybody. Bye bye.